I will be discussing something that was related to variables, arguments, and string methods at a very high level. Please confirm if my voice is audible, screen is visible, so that we can just kickstart the session. Can anyone please confirm my voice is audible, screen is visible?
Yep, it's audible.
Yep, thank you.
Yes, audible.
Yep, thank you. So just to have a recap, till now we have just discussed about all the primary things that was required for why we are learning UiPath, nothing but what is done before automation. So now let's try to jump into things that will be laying as a foundation for things which you will be learning going forward. Right. So I'll be also sharing a link for the installation too. So I've request for that information also to be shared. Let me just open. Yep, let me just create a new flowchart. So which will be talking about variables. So before that, let me just open the theoretical part just to have an overview of what we are actually discussing. Yep, these are the things we'll be trying to learn today. So we'll try to just have a definition of variables. So explain the variable panel, explain the scope of variables, and why the arguments came into picture. And we'll also discuss about the arguments panel, and also we'll discuss about the different types of arguments. And we'll basically compare arguments and variables. That's our agenda for the today's session. So variables and their types, let's try to discuss. So before going into understanding of variables, let's try to understand the basic definition of variables. So why we are trying to utilize variables. So it's one of the best practice. Instead of hard coding your values in your code, we'll be trying to utilize the variables or arguments. So the basic purpose of utilizing variables are to store a value or allocate a memory space inside your particular memory allocation and all. So you're just trying to store a value in a memory allocation. So that is what we basically call as variables. So let's say that in a code, there is something called account number where you are trying to utilize for 20 times. Okay. If you have hard coded that particular account number 20 times in your code, if there is a change in account number, so you need to go to all the 20 places to make sure that you are trying to change your account number. But if you try to utilize variables, so if you are changing the variable value once, it will be reflecting back in all the 20 places you have been utilizing inside your particular code, right? So variables are containers that are used to store multiple types of data, and it might be a single value or a multiple value. So one of the biggest advantage we have here is to make it easier to label and store data, which can be later be used throughout the automation process. The same thing. So has an initial value which might be changed during the program through an external input, data manipulation, or passing one activity to another. So we can also change the value during course of your execution and all. It's like a box that stores data. Simple thing. It's like you're storing your particular data in a box, right? So that's a basic definition of using a variable. And when you're trying to create a variable, these were the four things you need to keep in mind when you're creating a variable. So first thing is name of the variable. Second is which type of variable you're trying to create. So what is the value you're trying to provide? And what is the scope? The scope defines nothing but the availability of the particular variable inside your particular program, right? So these were the four things you need to keep in mind. So best practices for naming the conventions for variables. So use clear and meaningful names. Use camel case. Assign names in a consistent manner. Keep the variable names descriptive and short. So these were the four things we need to keep in mind. So let's say that I'm trying to create some variable for first name. So it's a string type, right? I'll go with a prefix of str underscore first name. So it should be something meaningful and also should be short and descriptive, and we'll be trying to utilize the camel case and in a consistent manner and all. Right. And coming to the next part, so we have different types of variables, but we'll be trying to discuss something about string, integer, data type, or data table, array, or list at a very high level today. Okay. So string variables basically comes up with storing the values which were every time in the double quotes. Whenever you're trying to create a string variable, so it's nothing but combination of characters. So whatever that was there in the double quotes will be considered as a string variable. So example, you can create your first name, your account number in the double quotes. You can write your last name. You can write your company name, location. So all these things and all. So which we will try to understand how to create these things, how to utilize these things. So Boolean variable holds the values of true or false. It can provide you outcome as either true or false. So whenever there is something of validation, we'll try to use those things. And number variables are nothing but integer variables where you will try to store integer values. And data type variables holds the values of data type, right? So let's try to discuss about this four type of variables. So we will try to see how to create a variable basically, how to modify a variable, how to print the variable in the output panel, as well as in the message box, right? So these are the four things we'll try to just see as of now. Let me just try to create. So this is a particular a new program which we have created. So I'll just go to the variables panel. I'll try to create a variable str underscore variable one, var1. Okay. So I'm just creating a variable here. Okay. So once you create the variable here, so variable type we need to also provide. So I'm trying to provide the string type. So scope is nothing but this is the whole flowchart. This particular variable value is available. So what is the default value? So whatever that was there in the double quotes, I'll be trying to print something called hello hyper automation underscore AI, right? So I've created a variable here. So what I want to do is I'll go to the projects, activities. I'll search for the message box and make it drag and drop. Okay. So when you're trying to drag and drop, so make sure that you're connected with the start. So and in the message box, what I want to provide, I need to provide the variable value, right? Okay. So what is the text I want to pass basically? So I want to pass the value of the str variable one. So I've just passed that one. We have also called write line, which will also help you out. Okay. So we have also something called write line, so which will help you out to print something in the output panel. So what will be printed in the output panel basically? So we can see something that was related to the start and stop of your executions, right? So let me just write the string variable one. So that is what we have provided here. So let me just save, just hit on run button. So first value will be printed in the message box, hello Hyperautomation-ai, and the second value will be printed here in the output panel. So we have something on output panel where we can see the execution has started and execution has ended in 4 seconds, and also the value of your string variable is printed, right? So let me make sure that I am trying to just assign a new value. So I'll be utilizing something called assign here. So let's say I'll just keep the assign here. Mhm. Assign in the middle. So what you're trying to assign here in the string variable one. So I want to assign a new value stating that it was earlier hello Hyperautomation-ai, but I want to just go with hello UiPath. Okay. So let me just save and try to make sure that I'll be trying to print the message box twice. You can simply copy paste your activities and drag and drop, right? So I'm just trying to drag and drop the message box twice. So in the first message box, what you will get? You will try to get your Hyperautomation-ai printed. In the second thing, a new value will be assigned. And in the third part, your new message box value will be printed with the hello year path. And in the right line also, you'll try to get the hello year path. So let me just save here, try to run the file. So we have hello hyperautomation printed. After the assign, we have printed a new value, hello year path. And we have printed hello year path in the things, right? So that is what we can do here in terms of just utilizing the same things. So let's say that I don't want to execute our first message box. So instead of deleting, we can simply use a shortcut key called Control D or make a right click. Or we can also enable the activity or we can basically disable the activity. And apart from enabling and disabling the activity, we can also cut, copy, paste and delete the activities and rename the activities too, right? So let me just disable the activity here. So I'll be assigning a new value and only the message box related to the particular hello year path will be printed and earlier message box is commented out. Right, we are getting only hello year path getting printed, right? And also hello year path in the output panel. So it purely depends based on your logic, like whether you want to comment out your existing code or you want to enable, so simply use control and all, right? So this now you can just create something that is related to variables and all. So anything that was there in terms of double quotes is termed as something called as a string variable here, right? So let me just create a new sequence which will talk about into variables, nothing but the number of variables and all. So what I'll do, I'll just use something called input dialog. Okay. So what is this input dialog? So input dialog will help us in providing the input from the user. Okay. So what is this dialog title? I want to say, so please enter value one values or value one to be calculated. Okay. So I'm just trying to say whether I want to do a calculation or not. So I want to provide a text box and the value entered. See here, I'm not trying to create the variable by going to the variables panel. I'm trying to utilize something called control K where I can create a variable here. So I'll say like int underscore var1. So when I say int var1, if I just go to the variables panel, it will be automatically created for us. The shortcut key is something called control K where you can just try to create your variables automatically inside your particular activities itself, right? So similarly, I'll try to copy paste. I'll say it's instead of getting your value 1, I want to utilize something called value 2. Right. So similarly, I want to create a new variable. So I which will say int var2. Okay. So in the variables, I'll try to make sure that it's reflecting, and I'm just changing the variable type as integer 32. Right. So we have two types of variables. Sorry, two variables int var1 and int var2, which is provided as an input for the calculation. So what I'll use a message box to make sure that I'm trying to do some calculation. Right. So I'll just use a message box. So in the message box, I want to do what? So I'll say like addition of two values is basically what I want to do. I want to add two numbers, right? That is int var1 plus int var2. So still it was having something called error, right? So I just want to click autofix here. So let's see whether it will try to autofix my error or not. Right. So you don't know why that particular error is coming and all. So we have a good option here to autofix. So something you are trying to add and you are not able to identify these things because so we have something this value as an integer and this is a string. So you cannot add a string to an integer. So after converting this particular value, you're adding a particular value, you're converting that to a string. And I've simply utilized something called autofix to make sure that it was working as expected. So earlier I've just written a condition like this, but I've utilized something called autofix to make sure that it was working as expected. So this is an error, right? So I don't know why it was getting an error. If you still don't know, you can just click on autofix. This is one of the latest feature in UiPath 2024.4 version. So automatically your thing got resolved here, right? So I'll just click on save here. So I'll just hit on save all and try to run the file. So initially it will ask to enter a value. So I'll provide 100. So second time also it will ask to enter value. I'll keep 50. So addition of two numbers is basically 150. Correct. So it's not only I can go with the addition. I'll just say like VBCRF where I want to print it in the new line plus I'll say like instead of addition I'll go with subtraction. So instead of int var1 minus var2, so I'll just utilize these things, right? So I'll just hit on save and just hit on save all and try to run the file again. Right. So I'll enter a value called 800. So on the second value, I'll try to enter maybe like 80. So you'll get the combination of both the things, like addition of two numbers is 880 and subtraction of two values is 720. Right. So what we have done, so we have created two input dialog boxes and utilized a message box, and also we have utilized something called autofix feature, which will help us in resolving the expressions what you're actually trying to write. Right. Any queries as of now, please do let me know. I think we have we're good. Yeah, we'll be moving forward. So let me just try to create another
Question
sequence which
here.
will talk. Yes, please.
Sorry to interrupt. So what was that feature you're saying? Auto correct feature in
Yeah,
this
it's autofix feature.
Where we can see that?
I'll open it again. So datetime variables. So what I've done here is I have uh, I'm writing some expression here, which is everything fine. But let's say that I forgot to convert your particular integer value to a string. So which will say that there is something an error, right? So you need to fix this manually. So earlier we used to Google or we used to search, right? But at the top we have something called auto fix where we can just click that and it will try to fix the particular expression there. See here. So earlier I was writing VBCRLF, right? So it has utilized something called environment.newline, which is more advanced than the particular things. And it is also converting this particular value into our particular value. I'm like into a string number, right? It really depends how you want to utilize those things. Okay. Hope you have understood that particular feature. Right. So we have also something called what I can say auto generate you code through autopilot also. So where I'll try to show you. So let's say let's try to do some string operations. I'll utilize something called assign. Okay. So in the assign, I'll try to create a new variable control k str var. So what's the value? So I'll say like hello hyper automation underscore AI, right? So just click it. So I'll be using a message box to get basically what I can say the length of the particular variable. Okay. Or else I just want to convert all your characters into uppercase. So you have something here, describe your expression in the natural language. So I'll say like convert str var characters of string variable into uppercase. I have forwarded something in function which can convert all your characters into uppercase. So here, so I haven't written any expression here, but it has created an expression for me. So you can also write here or describe here your sort of requirement and which will automatically convert that into expressions. So I'll say like all things into lowercase. Okay, so earlier I was using uppercase. So I want to convert that into lowercase. You have something called to-lower now, right? So that function I was not knowing, but I was able to extend those things. Or else I want to, and also I want to get the length of of the same string variable, right? So I'll just hit on that. So here it was converting all the characters into the things and it was auto fix. Let's try to see. So length also we can try to get here in the form of string length here. Okay. So sometimes your auto fix is working, but it's not working as expected. Yeah, fine. So we have something called lowercase string. We have str var, and I'll say like I want to get on the length of the string variable. Okay. So I'll just hit on the function. So we have something called all the things where you can convert string of the characters into string variable, right? So it purely depends how you are trying to get. You need to provide that in a understandable language so that it can be able to convert, right? So we have some query here. Let's see what's the query. So can we enter values in variables itself? Yes, we can enter. Okay. So let's say I want to split the value, right? Split this string variable, string variable str underscore var and get the length, get the count base string variable, split the string variable str var. So based on space and get the count of items after this split. Okay, so let me just see what expression it writes. So we are getting the length. It's getting split based on see here. It is getting split based on empty space, and we're getting the length here, right? So you can see however you want to get. Uh, it really depends how you want to go with the things. So these were all the string functions you can try to get, or else these were one of the string methods we can try to utilize. So I want to, let's say that, so get the substring of string variable str underscore var starting from fifth character to a length of 6 characters, right? So let's see whether what expression it will try to generate. So here, so I was saying from the fifth character, so it starts from 0, right? So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I was saying to extract till 6 characters. Yes, it was providing all the functions for us. So though you're not aware of these particular functions, you can still provide those information here in terms of a natural language where it will try to create expression for us. Right. So it's one of the important feature we have recently been utilized. Nothing but we have something called autopilot in the expression editor. So this is the autopilot feature in the expression editor. Right. So this is how you can write lots of expressions based on your requirements. So I'll say like I want to. I'll just go with the last thing. So replace value in string underscore var with your path for hyper automation. Okay. So I'm just trying to hit the expression. So you're trying to replace a value. So the value is basically it should be basically UiPath. So there's the old value and there's the new value. So you will be going something like this. Okay. So let's see whether it will try to replace the value called hyperautomation here. Okay, with the new value called UiPath. So let's try to run these things. It says like hello UiPath underscore AI. So earlier we used to have something called hyperautomation AI, but that's been replaced with this thing. I also print that thing so that you can get some idea. So here I'm trying to just print the value called strvar only. So let me just say we'll try to run the file. Right. So earlier value is hyperautomation AI. So after that, hyperautomation is replaced with something called UiPath. Right. So this is what you can try to do with various string operations. So we can just try to get the length, we can try to convert it uppercase, lowercase, split, substring, replace. So this is where some of the functions we can try to utilize in terms of string methods and all, right? So we are actually trying to see something about the data time variables. Let me just create another function. I'm like a file. So data underscore time. So let me just create. So I was just talking now something about the data time variables, right? So for that, let's say I will be trying to use directly a message box. So I'll say now dot. Okay, so you'll have lots of functions. So I'll say like I just want to get some date, or like I'll just utilize now. Let's see what we'll try to get in the message box. So it's the function we can utilize. Okay, so we have something called the today date. So we are on 4th of June and 2024 and 10/6/52, right? So this is something the present existing date on time, right? So but out of which I want to get only the date, or else I want to get the long method of the things. So you can utilize various functions there. So I'll utilize something called these were the other methods. So I'll go with too long date string. Let's see what this too long date string will provide. So it says like Tuesday, 4th June 2024, right? So let's say I want to get here only maybe CRLF. Maybe CRLF is the function which can go with the next line plus. So I'll say uh, I want to print basically year. Okay, so I want to get only the year plus. So now dot. So what I was trying to get, I want to get the year, right? Year. So but still facing issues because this is a string and this is a date time format. I'll try to click on autofix, which will say now dot year dot to string, right? So you can see here I was using autofix feature. So I'm just trying to get the dot to string, right? So I'll just hit on save and try to run the file to see what's the outcome. So we have year 2024. In a similar way, we can also add years. So let's say I want to get something called now. So I want to get the next 10 days part, right? So I'll utilize something called add days. And I want to add how many days? And let's say that I want to add 20 days. Okay. So I'll just hit on save. Try to save all. So we are on 4th June. 20 days after that is something 24. So which should be printed in your message box. Right. So we have 24 printed in the message box. Right. So till now we have seen something about how to create variables, how to create something related to string variables. We have utilized message box, assign, as well as write line activities. And also we have seen how to create variables automatically using a shortcut key, using Control K. And also we have seen how to disable activity, enable the activity, and also we have seen how to utilize the input dialogues and utilize various functions about the data type methods, right? So now let's try to jump into something of creating multiple values inside your variable. So till now we are trying to store a single value, right? But now let's say that I want to add more values into my particular thing. So what I'll do, I'll try to create something called array underscore variables or array variables. So what is array variable? So array variable is a type of a variable where it can store multiple values of a similar data type, and the size of array variable is fixed. Okay. So in order to create, so what I'll do, I'll just create a variables. In the variables, I'll say I want to create underscore array var1. And the type of array variable here we can see it's array of t. And in that, what are the values you want to store? I want to store string values, right? So I'll use an assign to store string values. So what are the values you can store? So it should be every time in the flower brackets in the double quotes, since I'm trying to store string values. So I'll store values called Kiran. So Pradeep. So we have something called Pathru, and we are part of Hyperautomation-ai, right? So these were the four values I'm trying to add. So index of these particular values starts basically from 0, 1, 2, and 3. So these are zeroth value, first value, second value, and the third value. Nothing but 0, 1, 2, 3. We are nothing but four values, right? So I'm trying to assign these values to array variable 1, and I'll be using a message box to see the count of this particular array variables. So how to get the count of the array variables? We have some function called array var of count dot count. Sorry. So we're just trying to get the count. So it will try to print you something called 4 in the outcome. So let's try to get the run file. So we have seen the 4 count, right? See, let's try to see how we can get this thing printed for us. So let's take another message box to print all the values. So I'll just disable or delete the existing one. So what I'll do, I'll directly pass array var and see what is the value I'll be getting printed here. Since it has multiple values, will my bot able to understand that it has multiple values and it will print all the values? So let's see how we can go with those things. So it will just say it's a system.string, nothing but it's a array variable of string type. So it has multiple values, so I cannot print it. So in that case, what we need to do is we need to use something called for each. Nothing but we need to loop all the items inside your particular array variable. So I'll be using for each loop, and I'll be trying to loop which variable, array variable, and in the body I'll be trying to utilize a message box to make sure that the items are getting printed, right? So in the array variable, you have something called current text, nothing but the item, and we are trying to pass the current text in the loop so that you will be getting all your items printed one by one. Okay, so let me just save the file and run the file so that we will be having printed. So can we enter the natural expression in the message? Only we can use it in the other adverts also. So wherever that is utilized in terms of expression editor, you can definitely utilize this natural expressions and all. So in the SN activities, in message boxes, or else in the if conditions and all, you can create those things. Okay, so we are getting the values printed here. So first value is Kiran, second value is Pradeep, the third value is Patrudu, and the fourth value is Hyperautomation-ai. Not in all activities we have that particular functionality. So wherever there is something called an expression editor that can be utilized, yes, we can utilize those things. Okay, fine. So this is how you can print all the values. But let's say that I want to print only the first value. Okay. So in order to do that, what I can do is I will say we have something called array dot variable dot of of let's say I pass 0, it will try to print me the first value. I pass 1, it will try to print the second value. I pass 2, it's nothing but the third value. So basically, I want to pass a third value, nothing but it will be printing Hyperautomation AI. So let's see if I was able to print the particular value or not. Right. So we have a value printed as Hyperautomation AI. So since I was trying to pass only the third value. So we can also individually print the values using for each loop, get the count of the particular array variable. So that is what we can do with the array variables, right? So similarly, we have something called list variables, dictionary, as well as other things too. Let me just open something that was related to list variable. We will just see what we can do with the list variables. So what is the difference between an array and a list? Array size of variable is fixed, but coming to the list, the size of list variable is dynamic. Nothing but you can increase or decrease the value of a list variable size during your execution, but not that happens in the array variable, right? So let's try to create this list variable. It's also collection of variables, but the size is dynamic in list. So in order to create the list variable, so what I'll do, I'll create a new sequence once again. So I'll say it's a list, variables, and I'll be utilizing variables to create a list underscore where the type of a list variable we need to browse for types. So the type is basically system dot collections dot generic dot list. So system dot, so it's system dot generic dot collections, right? Okay, system dot collections dot generic dot list. Yeah. So under the list, what is the type of values you want to create? I want to create string. So hit on save. So automatically it's created. And the syntax for creating list variable is something this. So what I'll do, I'll use an assign. So in the list, what I'll do is new list of string, and we need to provide the values from, and the syntax, same thing. Let's say Kiran, Pradeep. Okay, so let's say I'm having only three values. Okay, okay, so I'm adding three values, Kiran, Pradeep, and Patra. So to list variable, so what I do is I'll use some collection type activities. What I can do is I can filter, I can see if it exists in the collection. If not, I can just add on all these things, right? So what I'll do, I'll use something called existing collection. So what is a collection you're trying to search? I'm trying to search for the list variable. In that, I'm trying to search for a value called hyperautomation. Okay. I'm trying to search for a value called hyperautomation. So if it exists, what it will do? It will try to give me a value called true or false. So it's basically Boolean variable, right? See here, if you can see, outcome of a Boolean variable is a Boolean variable, right? So the outcome of existing collection, it will try to say whether your value is existing or not, true or false. If it is true, it will try to provide you an outcome. If it is false, also it will try to provide, right? So I'm trying to search. If that was not there, I want to add items to the collection. So you will simply use an if activity to make sure that you are passing a Boolean variable. Nothing but you are passing a Boolean exist. If it is true, so we will try to say a message box stating that a value exists. If the value doesn't exist, so value exists, right? If the value doesn't exist, what you want to do? You want to add items to the collection, right? So we have something called append items to collection. So what I'll do, I'll say that in the list variable, try to add a new value. So called Hyperautomation-ai. Okay, hit on save. So before adding what is the value or the count, we'll be trying to see, and after adding also we'll try to see the count. So nothing but I was trying to get the count of the list variable items. And similarly, after seeing, also I'll get the count at the end of the if condition, right? As simple as that. So I've utilized as an activity a message box to get the count. After seeing if value exists, if it is true, say value exists. If not, add the add value, and finally get the message box values. Nothing but the count. So let me try to run the file. So earlier we have three values, nothing but Kiran, Pradeep, and Patradu. So after which we have four values, nothing but the value got added during course of your execution, nothing but hyperautomation got added, right? So this is how we can utilize multiple sort of activities based on the requirements or the business requirements. Okay. So last but not least, we'll try to see the concept of arguments and we'll just wind up the session for today. Fine. Any queries, please do let us know. So we'll try to create a new sequence called ARG1 and I'll try to create a new sequence called ARG2. Okay. So what is the purpose of utilizing these arguments? So let's say that I'm having a value called list variable, which I need to pass it to argument one, ARG1. So I'm trying to search for the variables, but it's not available. So when you are trying to pass the values from one XAML to another XAML, you cannot pass it using something called variables. You need to utilize a concept of called arguments. So arguments helps us to pass the values from one XAML to another XAML. So when you're trying to create the arguments, either you'll be in a position to receive the values or send the values or both the things. So that is what we have here. in terms of different types. How to see single item from the list in the message box, same thing. So list var of index. So you need to provide the list variable of index. The same thing what we have done in the array variable of index, right? So let's see, I have created something called an argument. Okay, so let's say the value is argument one, which is of out direction. In direction is nothing but it will try to receive the values. Out is something it will try to send the values. In or out is something it has both the capabilities of sending or receiving the values. So what I'll do, I'll just try to send the values. So what value are trying to send here? I'll try to say that I'm trying to utilize something called assign, and the value of your argument one is basically hello UiPath. Okay, so this is our value, right? And I want to print that in the argument two. So how to print that? So what I'll do here, I'm trying to create another argument called argument two, which is of indirection. I'm just using a value or something direction of in, right? And I'm trying to print something here in the message box, the argument two, right? So if I just run this, what it will do, it will try to just provide me an empty value, nothing will be printed. But when I pass the arguments, you'll be able to get the values. So let's see how we can pass the values. To pass the values, you need to import your particular variables. How to import your variables? So something I'll try to utilize. See, I just came to the project panel and I'm trying to drag and drop your examples. So how you drag and drop your activities? I'm trying to drag and drop my examples. So here I'm trying to say that import the arguments, right? So it's in the out direction. So what it was saying, so it was trying to send a value, and that value you want to store it in a variable. So I'll create a variable stating str value. So now hello your path, which is of argument one value, will be stored in str value, right? So this is done. So from this, again, I'm trying to import the arguments, nothing but I'm trying to get the value passed inside the argument two. So we have already stored the value. So what is the value? It's called str value, right? So in the message box here, if I try to run, it will also try to just go with the things. Earlier it gave me an empty message box, right? So let me just save the file, try to run the file. Let's see what it happens. So you'll be printed with a value called hello UiPath, right? So how come that happen? We are able to pass the values from one XAML to another XAML. We are able to send the values and also receive the values from my XAMLs, right? So that is what we see the concept of arguments. So passing the values from one XAML to XAML, since the scope of variable is restricted max to the particular XAMLs we have created, right? So this is what we want to share in the today's session in terms of variables, arguments, and the string methods. And we have seen two extra features, which is autopilot in trying to create the expressions and also the autofix feature, right? So any queries, please do let us know, or else we will try to wind up the session for today and try to get back tomorrow.
If Kiran, I have a small query. Like
Yes, Tim.
there is one thing like called the global variable will be there, right?
Uh-huh.
Global
So
variable.
So global
Uh,
variables are nothing but similar to what we are trying to create in the arguments.
that means in the sense like the global variable. just I wanted to know like how and when we can use that one.
So global
It
variables,
is
let's say that in multiple programs, I'm like in multiple code lines and all, I'm trying to utilize a single value called account number. So you can just utilize the particular global variable. So instead of creating it in one XAML, passing it to another XAML, you can just create a global variable and you can just utilize it across all the things. You can also utilize the global variables. I'll show you in the data manager. So you have something called as constants where you can also create, I think. Similar to global variables is something similar to arguments, but I'll get back to you on the same thing. So I haven't utilized the concept of those things, but I'll get you back on the same.
yeah, yeah, sure, sure. Thank you.
Fine then. I think we are good. So we'll wind up the session for today. Thanks for joining. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kiran.
Thank you.